Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is going to be a look into this light video. Now, today is going to be something of a bunch of random little bits. Had someone lowering a Tahoe at my house all day. So, not really going to get anything major done. Well, turns out that's a pretty good opportunity to do some things that are going to cause you trouble in the future if you don't do them now. We'll get into that in a minute, though. So, obviously, organization is a thing, especially with a large project. And I'm the worst. I'm an order and chaos guy. I have an eidetic memory, so like this, I can like blindly reach over here and tell you this is a 3/4 wrench. That's just how I normally operate. I'm trying to get away from that. So, let me show you what I did. So, instead of, operating with all of this stuff here, and, this stuff, and once again, I can fully operate out of that, but it doesn't look good. I was told it's not camera friendly. So I went ahead and did this. This is a little cobalt set. It's like a 300-piece cobalt set. It's actually pretty cool. It's in like nice EVA foam. Don't worry, I know where that's at. I was actually kind of in the middle of doing stuff, but so you get that, and you get that, and I mean you have all three of your ratchets. It comes with a little 3/8 breaker bar. Not sure why anybody needs a 3/8 breaker bar. 10-inch extensions for both, 6-inch extensions for both 3/8 and ½ inch, and then there's 5-inch. Get in focus here. 5-inch, ½ inch rub. I'm not going to go through all of this. You can go to their website if you really want to see. Then it comes with combination wrenches. Then some little ignition wrenches, and some more ignition wrenches, and then the requisite bag of Allen keys, because we know how well that works. I have a couple of Husky long sets up there, and I've ordered some OEM sets that are foam as well. This set actually was $199. No sales. That's just the price from Lowe's. It's cobalt. It's warranted. I've broken a couple of the ratchets, but I have like 4,200 ratchets. One thing that was interesting about this is the ½ inch to 3/4 adapter. I'm not sure why any home hobbyist would ever need that. And if we're being completely honest, like I'm a mechanic by profession, if it's bigger than ½ inch, you're jumping to 1 inch anyway. So that's kind of a novelty item, at least to me. And then, the ever so useful, if I could find the damn button, adjustable breaker bar, and ½ inch, of course. Okay, so obviously organization's a thing with a big project. Like, I'm doing an E85 fuel system. I'm gonna have to wire E85 sensor up. I'm going to attach the alternator and the fans to the power tap on the Holley Terminator. So obviously I bought a bunch of wire in different color and some insulation that matches the Holley insulation. I got a bunch of heat shrink and all of that. But I mean, this is a very simple way to store wire. Wire comes on spools. This is just a little piece of ½ inch metal tubing and an eye bolt here and just a piece of wood with a hole drill in it. The reason that I used an eye bolt is because as the amount of wire I have grows or shrinks, I can adjust the bolt to keep it all tight. Once again, you know, it's just little things make stuff a little bit easier. See the old engine bay there. Okay, we've magically morphed to underneath the truck. There's a couple of things I want to talk about under here. This is the fuel pressure regulator combo from a Corvette. And there's where my lines are ran. Okay, so when you have a day like today where stuff gets in the way of you accomplishing anything big, it's a great time to accomplish things that are going to bite you in the long run if you don't. For example, okay, obviously I had to adjust my shift linkage and reroute my shift cable. Uses the same cable as the Turbo 400 did, but like this is where I had that before because it was a quicker turnaround because the trans's not as long. Did some stuff like, well, you can't see anything because there's no light. Hold on. Okay, so not the best light, but yeah, this is a Milwaukee ratchet. So you can't really tell, but I tweaked the bracket a little bit just to move it up. That way it kind of gets out of the way of the exhaust a little better. And I will be heat wrapping. Well, the pipe right here is already heat wrapped, but all of this will be heat wrapped just to keep heat off of the cable. You know, I took my time and thought about things like the drive shaft, you know, was the cable out of the way of that, and then secure your fuel line and make sure your filter's secure. And then this is going to kick back up here and go up the firewall, and you know, I'm going to make sure it's secure up there. Got to do my torque converter bolts, decide on which one of these plugs is coming out for the wideband to go into. Yeah, there's a ton of things under here, like the leaking pinion seal. They are gonna vomit from the way this camera's flipping around. But I like the leaking pinion seal, you know, that's super easy to change right now. So I'm gonna do that and a few of these things. There's that beautiful cross member there. So yeah, I'll get back with you in a minute. So I'm using a little side note. This little strap here is tied around the balancer. I did that because I have the motor set back so far. When I took the trans out, I didn't want it like hanging down and jacking stuff up. Well, put my torque converter bolts in. Like, man, I can only spin this thing like halfway and it stopped spinning. Do I have like a piston hitting a valve or something? I mean, this motor was running. Then it occurs to me, it's still tied to the to the sway bar. So yeah, that was a funny little anecdote. Anyway, have some cut finger. In the spirit of buttoning things up, you know, it's actually the next day, but I don't really feel like doing much. So I came out here and got my super cheap Amazon throttle body. Actually feels pretty decent. There's no like huge gaps or anything. There were some reviews about this being loose. Mine wasn't. And honestly, even if that is loose, put some silicone on it and jam it back in. It'll be fine. Put my, you know, throttle position sensor and idle air control on, and test fitting my throttle cable, because I got a throttle cable for like a 02 Tahoe or something. Obviously, this new body style intake, or the Trailblazer SS intakes with 4-bolt throttle bodies, did not come and drive-by cable. So I purchased a little throttle cable bracket from I don't remember the name of the place currently. I'll come up with it in a minute. But it's actually a very nice bracket. Like, it's very thick, it's very rigid. It's slotted so that you can, you know, adjust perfect tension in the cable. Because when you adjust your throttle cable, which is way easier to do on a bench, Obviously, you don't want it to crack the throttle open just sitting still, but it's pretty easy to. It's a lot easier on a bench to tell when you're getting to that point. And what you do is you just loosen these screws up with your throttle cable in. You pull it back until it cracks the throttle open. Then you move it back forward, or adversely, you can move it forward until you see the cable come up off of the cam, and then just back it up until the cable is nice and flat on the cam, and then tighten it up. So yeah, I'm gonna find the name of that real quick, because it's actually, they have quite a few LS swap parts there, not the cheapest place ever, but I will say it's pretty good quality. It's Glenn's Automotive Performance is where I got that. I believe it was like $34. That's something else from them too, but anyone who's ever had a ultra floppy throttle cable bracket like on a carburetor knows how absolutely infuriating they can be when you're trying to set your range of throttle and it's moving. So it's a nice unit. It bolts into existing riv nuts or whatever those are, threaded inserts. And another thing in the reviews is like TPS not fitting right, or I'm sorry, TPS not fitting right, or IAC not fitting right. They were a little tight. As far as like the bores not being deep enough or any of that, it was fine. And if you've bought things made of Chinesium before, you would probably agree that too tight is definitely better than too loose. So over here we alleviated the boy of the wheel wells. Funny story. See that disconnected steering shaft? I changed the column in this because I completely broke the column. Anyone who has any older OBSs knows exactly what I'm talking about. The truck I got the column out of, because it was also a manual truck, may have had a body lift. And he may have taken one of the bolts out of the extender and I didn't notice it. So I was driving this thing around, albeit not that far, with the steering just being suggestive. So, that's good. And that's not rusty. That's just dirty from leaves and stuff. So yeah, I took the wheel wells out. I'm going to have to make something for the foot of the bottom of this battery tray if I don't move it, which I'll probably just move it to the back. Reason I did this is because I don't want to shoot my downpipe through that hole. I'd rather run like a 5-inch downpipe out the outside of the frame to the back. But that's way later on down the road. But I don't want to have a bunch of stuff attached to my wheel wells. Another thing, I typically take wheel wells out of performance vehicles. I understand that people disagree with it and think that water's going to ruin the world and all of that. But I've always done it. I've never had a problem with it. You get so much more heat out. Like on my 05, the idle air or the air intake charge temperatures dropped by like 100 degrees from removing the wheel wells. So, you have somewhere for the air to go as opposed to just slamming into the firewall. Let's see what else we have. Let's see. The old crapper. I got all of my trans lines, my trans cable and all of that done. I'm waiting on a couple of fittings for my trans lines. I think I'm going to measure for my drive shaft today. So I may include a little bit of that. Okay, so here's another little tidbit of, most LS swaps. These are throttle cables. This is the this is the throttle body end of a TBI cable. No, I'm sorry. I lied. Flip this around like it goes. Okay, so this is the pedal end of a 2002 Tahoe cable and a 1991 GMC cable. And these ends are identical as far as, you know, the fitting to get the pedal and the little grommet here. This is a little different. Okay, so on the right is the 91. It's a square stab connector. It is a absolutely gloriously fun time to get out. If you use 45-degree long needle nose pliers like these right here, the throttle pedal itself ends up between them, so you can't squeeze it tight enough. So it's a good time. I almost took the throttle pedal out, but I did manage to finagle it out. So if you look at this one, this is just a gasket here. If you look at this one, it's also a stab connector, but it's round. They're pretty similar in size. I do think, however, I'm going to have to do a little bit of grinding on that to get it to actually fit. I did a little preliminary hit on it, and it really won't pop in there. So you got this end. They're basically completely different. The little stab connector's the same because, well, pretty much all of them are at this point. But this is the new one with the longer cable that wraps around this boy and hangs out down there. So, let me go over here and show you the hole in the truck, if the light's still working. Okay. So, here, hold on. So one other small thing to touch on. So I've started getting the tablet bezel fit in. I'm going to trim the holes for the USB and charger and all of that. I'm going to trim the factory bezel to encapsulate this, and of course this is going to be painted black. What I ended up doing to actually get enough room, you may notice my column is currently a bit jiggly. I'm going to basically just move it down with some spacers and some longer bolts so that I didn't have to cut out in the center. So I think it'll work out okay. That's better. Okay, so back there you have a little square hole in the firewall, and then it comes back through here. This is the fuel pedal. Like I said, if you need to take the pedal out, it's like, 3 bolts. But you can more easily get back there to squeeze those things together. But this side of the pedal is the same, so you shouldn't really have any issues here. And you bought the new cable for the purpose of it connecting to your new throttle body, so you shouldn't have any problems on that end either. I was concerned because it looked a little too short, but after stabbing it in the firewall, it looks like it's going to be just about perfect. It's not going to be a whole bunch of extra. It should be nice, but we'll see. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this video. It's kind of just a bunch of random nonsense anyway, but honestly, that random nonsense is kind of what gets you. Like, that's the nickel and dime, time-consuming stuff that, there's not a bunch of glory in, but it's also the stuff that's going to determine how nice your vehicle actually is to drive. It's how much attention you pay to those things. That's basically the difference between being a teenager and an adult. Those are the things we generally want to gloss over. But at the end of the day, when you're out driving this thing, trying to enjoy yourself, you don't really want to be under it on the side of the road, wishing you had adjusted that shifter cable. Oh, need to readjust that shifter cable. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and all of that other YouTube stuff. And we'll see you shortly.